Hi everyone, welcome to a mobility flow with me. This is actually my first flow that I'll be filming in 2024, and the aim for today is to just move and open up the whole body, especially the hips and ankles. I'm being a bit selfish because my back and my hips have just been feeling really tight in the past week. So that's what we're gonna do. If there is anything that you would like me to focus on over the coming weeks, then pop a comment or in the comments below, or send me a message and pop a request in. Let me know how I can help you with more videos this year. I am going to be posting more yoga flows, mobility flows, and skill sessions such as working on your handstands. So I'd love to know what's going to help you more. But for today, let's get into ankles and hips and a bit full body and just open up. We're going to start in a kneeling position with our toes hooked. And for some, this might feel way too intense straight away. So you can have your hands further forward and then just gently press through the toes, or you can start to come all the way up until your bum is on your heels. If any of this feels uncomfortable, use cushions, props, anything to just support these positions and make them feel more accessible. It might feel nice to have cushions under your knees, for example, or under your bum. Have a bit of a wiggle about, stretch into the feet, stretch the toe joints, stretch the soles of the feet, loosen them off. And then from here, we're just going to unhook them. And if you can, sit your bum to your heels or just go to where you can. Once again, you can be further out in front with your hands for support. Sitting on the tops of the feet, stretching here into the top of the feet and into the shins. You can also take it further by lifting one knee, the other knee, maybe both. Then we'll go back into that toe hook. Stretch the soles of the feet again. Have a little go at gripping down through your toes. Actually grip them into the floor. You're going to feel more intrinsic heat building up into your feet, activating those muscles, and then unhook again. Once again, you can sit here or maybe lift the knees. Let's just move back and forth, a few more repetitions at your own pace. You can hold either of those positions for longer if it feels like that's what you need to do, or you can move more dynamically. When you're ready, you're going to sit on our bum, sit yourself down, hold on to the front of one of your shins, the other leg can just do its own thing. We're going to pick that leg up and make some circles with the ankle. Nice big circles, changing direction, pulling the toes up at the top here, so you're going to feel these muscles on the front of the shin activate. Circle it all the way around and down, pointing down, feel the musculature under the sole of the foot and into the calves. And work your way back up, and then reverse it, go the other way. And just go for a few more, changing direction each time, really trying to work into the end range as best you can. By having the hands around the shin here, we're just helping to block the knee so we can really focus on the ankle. Let's go for one more. And then release and switch. If you don't get much change or you don't free up the ankles as much at that sort of pace, then you can always spend a couple of extra minutes per side. I normally spend about a minute and a half. But for now, we're just going to get some rotation into the feet. And release from there. Stay seated on your bum. We're going to work into some hip rotation. Now for this one, you can lie all the way down onto your back if sitting up feels too much. I have not got much space in here, but I generally start with this one, hands behind me, hips a bit further away, and then take the feet wide and just think about rotating the hips, just going in and out. You don't have to be able to get your knees all the way to the ground. It's something you can work on. And right now we're just moving gently, passively, side to side. If you are leaning back on the hands, just press through the shoulders as well. Try not to sink into this position. Keep your chest open. The aim here is now to really try and think about keeping your bum on the floor. If your bum lifts up, what you'll find is you start creeping forward as well. So keep your bum on the ground, press through the shoulders, and we're just taking those hips through internal and external rotation. And if I try and go too far, one, I'm either gonna get stuck, or my bum may then lift up and I'll just start to compensate more. So just work through your true range. It will start to open up over time. We're gonna hold it on one side. So we're in this 90-90 position. We've got internal rotation in this back hip, external in the front hip, pressing through the shoulders, or you can challenge this to sit up taller. You can face the front shin. You can have a little go at facing the back knee. You can move between the two. If this is too much, go back to hands being behind you. Now we're going to switch to the other side. Think about resisting the hips away from each other. So I'm not just sort of moving really easily or fast side to side. If I now think about opening this top hip and pulling the hips open until I then transition to the opposite side, you're going to feel a lot more heat into the outer hips and a lot more muscle activation. Again, pressing the legs into the floor. So as I sit here, I obviously have hands behind, or I can sit up, but I'm going to push my legs into the ground to feel more of that activation. And then again, I can change that torso position. If you go into full cramp and you find you get stuck, just make sure that you're regressing it a bit to make this a bit easier, something to work towards. Being on the verge of cramp tends to be a good place to be as you're working into your end range, but if you go into full cramp and then you can't move, it's not so good. Let's go to the other side. Really resisting those hips away from each other again. I can now add in a bit of a hinge over this front leg. So press the legs into the ground. Imagine I'm sending the belly button towards that shin. Feel a deeper stretch into the outer hip, into the glutes. And this is great because we're also getting that stretch into the back hip, into internal rotation. And then we're working and stretching into the outer hip and glutes, but also getting that muscle activation by pressing the leg into the floor. And this is a great option to do, especially if you find pigeon with the back leg straight too much as well. You might perhaps feel it into your knee. You shouldn't feel this one here into your knee. So rotate, really resist the hips away from each other. Over to the other side. Another variation of this that can feel a bit more accessible too is to actually just shorten the distance between the foot and the back knee and work from this position. So if you're finding 90-90 is just too intense right now, change that angle. So again, moving in and out, pressing that front leg and that front hip into the ground, also pushing the back leg down, feeling that stretch into the outer hip and glutes. And then we'll go back to the other side again. So hands might come behind you, lift this back knee up. Try and keep this leg down for as long as you can. So open this back hip, and then when you physically can't move anymore, then let that back leg lift. Okay, have a couple of easy rotations side to side. And then all we're going to do is go to a tabletop position. So bring yourself onto your mat. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Go through a bit of cat and cow just to open up tension in the spine. Begin from the lower back. Think tuck the pelvis under, press through the lower back, press through mid back, all the way to the upper back, and then tuck your chin. Next, we're going to tilt the pelvis forwards. Try to isolate through that lower back. Work to the mid back, all the way up to the upper back, and then lift the head up. Really trying to open your chest. Take a nice deep inhale and expand the chest more. And then exhale, tuck the tailbone, peel your way up through the spine, tuck the chin last. Once again, work your way from the lower back to the mid back to the upper back. And just go through a few more rounds in your own time. Next, we're going to add some circles. So go into your cat, press out through the ribs to one side, draw the belly down, roll your way around to the opposite side and back up. And then just keep changing direction. Get that stretch into some other areas, into the ribs, into the hips, into the shoulders. Just move around. And release back to your tabletop. We're going to go through some rotation for the hips again. This time we're going to be building a bit more strength and muscle activation. We have knees under hips, hands under shoulders. And we're just going to flex the foot, just pick one side. Doesn't matter if we do different sides. We're just going to take that leg back into hip extension. So what we're trying to avoid is sinking into the lower back and just forcing that knee nice and high. We're going to tuck, think about drawing the lower ribs in, tucking the tailbone, and actually feeling instead that activation into the hamstrings and the glutes. You may not get that leg anywhere near as high. And then bring it back down again. Just do the same on the other side. Flexing the foot, squeezing the glutes, raising that leg up into that hip extension. And notice if you feel much difference between the two. We're also going to go into hip flexion. So draw the knee in, trying to keep the length in the spine. And also taking it back. Locking those lower ribs in. It's like someone's punched you in the stomach. And then bring it down. Same on the other side. Draw the knee in, keeping the spine nice and long, trying to avoid just rounding it out to draw it in. Just go to where you can. And then taking it back to extension and lower it down. We're now going to add some extra bits to this into some rotation. Draw your knee in, flexing the foot, and now take it out to the side. Feel the outer hip firing up. Circle it all the way around into that position of hip extension, not forcing the position so that your lower back starts to extend. Draw it in, and then we're going to reverse it, take it back, circle it back out to the side, in at the front, and lower it down. And if you're doing this right, you should feel pretty hot quite quickly. And you can probably tell by my breathing already. I'm going to draw the opposite knee in, working into the hip flexors, take it out to the side, feel those outer hip muscles firing up, trying not to then rock through the lower back, taking it around to hip extension. Again, lower ribs pinning in, glutes working hard. We're really trying to lift the leg, but without compensating from elsewhere in the spine. And then draw it back in again. Reverse it, take it back, and out, and in, and down. And we'll do that twice more each side. Obviously, if it's feeling too intense, just ease off a little bit, something to work towards. Draw the knee in, take it out, circle it around, back in at the front, and back. And the other way. Once more each side. Over time on those, you can progress them by adding longer holds in those end range positions. But for now, hopefully that felt good for your hips, and you'll build up a lot of muscle activation too. We're going from here into a downward dog. So have your hands in that shoulder width position, hook the toes. We're going to lift the hips. You can keep the knees bent and take the head through the shoulders. Turn the biceps towards each other, press the ground away. Maybe extend the legs, one at a time or both together. And don't worry if your heels don't touch the floor. Bend and extend the legs to where you can. And then holding that downward dog, breathing in and out of your nose, pressing the ground away, taking the chest through towards the thighs. And then lower the knees to the ground. We're going to go back into that downward dog, and this time you've got the option of raising one leg up into a three-legged dog, which might feel too intense right now. So if it does, you can actually do this movement from tabletop, and essentially we're doing more rotation at the hips, so you can simply go back into some more of your hip cars from this tabletop position. Otherwise, we're lifting up to downward dog, raising one leg up, see how that feels into the hamstrings. You can bend the knee and you can open this hip, have a little bit of a wiggle about, see how the hips are feeling. And then have another go at your hip rotations, drawing the knee in, taking it out, nice big circle. But also here, trying not to get carried away and then just extend into the lower back or twist to find more range. Try to still think about that glute and hip activation. So from here, that's where I get blocked. I don't then force it by adding some rotation. Let's extend that leg up, and you're going to take your foot up outside your hands. You can do that in one or as many steps. Don't worry if you had to shuffle it all the way up there. Elevate your hands on top of something to help if this is too intense with your hands on the floor. Some yoga blocks might help, or anything to stack it up, or you can elevate this foot on top of a chair instead. Have a moment just moving around into the hips, seeing how they feel. And then connecting with your breathing, so inhaling through the nose and out of the nose or out of the mouth. Trying to really fill up the lungs on that inhale, and on the exhale, allowing the body to find that space in the hips. We're going to add a rotation for the thoracic here. The hand that's closest to your front foot reaches up. So whichever side you are on, the hand closest to the foot reaches up, and we look up towards the thumb. Squeeze the glutes, press through this bottom shoulder, open your chest, and bring it back again. That's our first option, and you can do that with obviously with the bottom hand elevated. You could also try taking the outside hand further out to create a bit more space as you rotate, and we can also draw the forearm down towards the ground. So just move in and out for another few repetitions. Adding a pause here at the top, really trying to expand and open that chest more. And hold this last one, breathing into it, pressing through the bottom shoulder, squeezing the glutes, feeling that back hip extension into the hip flexors, getting that stretch. And then bring the hands down. Staying in this position, either with the hands elevated or on the floor, or maybe working the forearms down in line with that front foot. Trying to keep length into your spine, not forcing the elbow down and then rounding through the back. If we're twisting like this, you're going to want to elevate the forearms or elevate the hands. The back knee can stay down or it can lift into a deep lizard lunge. Stay here and breathe. Trying to tell the body to relax a bit more on those exhales and find more space. Keep the chest lifted and open. And then from there, let's go back onto the hands if we aren't. Lower the back knee. Have a moment. We're going to shuffle the foot into the center of the mat. So toe heel it in. Hands are going either side of that front foot, and you could elevate them on blocks. We're going to open the back hip, lift the chest, and then send the hips back, lift the toes, or you can keep them pointed, but we're sending the hips back and getting the stretch into the hamstrings now. So you can do either point or flex. The knee can be bent. And the hands can obviously be on the ground, as mine are here, or onto the hips, or onto blocks. Now I quite like the variation with hands on the hips because I can press this heel into the floor to help with my balance as well. But I'm also getting more muscle activation as opposed to pushing more weight into my hands if my flexibility allows it. And then from there, coming back into the hips at the front, lift the chest, squeeze the glutes, try to keep the lower ribs down. If you're quite flexible, you might be tempted to sink into it more and extend the back. So try to pin the lower ribs, engage the glutes, press the hip open. And we'll just do that a couple more times. Send the hip back. So I'm hinging at the hip, thinking about trying to tilt this pelvis forwards. And if it helps, come all the way up first and then think about pushing your bum back. As the bum pushes back, the thigh bone is drawing up and into the hip and pressing the heel down. And the chest is lifted. If I fold over like this, one, I might be more likely to lose my balance, but also you won't get as good of a stretch. You'll end up taking it more into your back. Let's go back into the hips at the front. Toes can stay hooked on that back foot. Lower ribs down. And into the hamstrings. From here, we're coming to the top of the mat and going back to your downward dog. And you've got the option of going to your tabletop instead. Breathe into it. So if you're in tabletop, you're going back into those hip rotations. If you're in downward dog, you're raising the other leg up, bending the knee, making some circles with that hip. So I'm going to draw the knee in, take it out, circle it around to hip extension, draw it in, and then take it back, circle it around, that starting position again. Just go for a couple more. When you're ready, draw the foot up, outside the hands. So hands are inside that front foot. They can be up on your yoga blocks. Have a moment to just breathe into this space, getting a deep stretch into the back hip flexors, deep stretch, working into flexion in this front hip. Have a bit of a wiggle about, maybe make some circles. You might notice one side feels different to the other, so take note of that as well. Don't force anything on one side if one side felt more flexible, for example. From this position, we're going to add some twists, working into the thoracic a bit more. The inside hand is reaching up, looking up towards the hand, opening, rotating through the chest, and back down again. So you can keep moving through this rotation. Remember, you can take the outside hand further away, and we can also play around with drawing this forearm down towards the ground and then reaching up. A few more repetitions at your own pace. It can feel nice to hold that top position as well. Use your breath and then really trying to rotate more, not rushing it. And then from here, we can stay on the hands and just stretch into the hips from this place, or draw the forearms down in line with that front foot. Lengthen the spine, open the chest, lift the eyes, I find that helps. And the back knee can stay down or lift up. Keep breathing in and out of the nose. Telling the body to relax and open up more on those exhales. And then when you're ready, we'll come back up onto the hands. You can toe heel your front foot to the center of the mat. And now we're going into our hips to hamstrings again. So from this position, hands can be up on the hips. We're going to send the back hip open, squeeze the glutes, lift the chest. You can obviously elevate your hands on yoga blocks, try to pin the lower ribs down. Then we're sending the hips back. You can pull the toes up or point the foot. The knee can bend. And then remember, we are hinging at the hips, not forcibly rounding out. Press the heel into the mat. Thigh bone draws up into the hip. And when you're ready, let's come to the top of the mat and make your way to a tabletop. From your tabletop, take your knees wide, big toes touching, send your bum towards your heels, reaching out in front of you, at the same time pressing your bum back towards the heels. Walk your hands as far as you can around to one side, pressing your bum back, stretching into the lats. And then the same on the other side. Bring yourself back to the center, coming up, find a seated position. And from here, we are finishing with one last stretch for the hips. You can have one leg straight out in front, take the other foot over the top of the thigh. This might still feel a bit too much. You could elevate your hips on some cushions or blocks to help. And to take it further, I can also bend this bottom leg. So now I'm getting a bit more of a stretch into both hips too. And this might feel enough. You can stay here, or we're going to add a twist. Hug the top thigh in towards you and take your other hand behind your back. So you should be feeling it stretching into this outer hip and you should be turning towards it. The hand behind you, we're going to lead back with the shoulder. So we've now got this rotation in the upper body, looking over that shoulder. Take a full breath in through your nose. You'll feel everything sort of tighten up on that inhale. You'll come further back to the front. So really fill up the lungs. As you exhale, think about leading with the chest, following the back shoulder, so looking over it. And then just another few rounds of breath, trying to deepen that stretch. Feeling a bit more of that twist, feeling a deeper stretch into the outer hip. And the breath really is the key to help take this further. So focus on those full inhales, really filling up through the lungs. Feeling the whole rib cage expand. And then exhaling, leading back with the chest. Feeling that deeper stretch. And then from there, come back to the center. We'll do the same on the other side. So bottom leg can be straight, or you can tuck that one in as well. You can stay seated here. You can elevate your hips, or add this twist. So another sort of 5 breaths on this side. Do what feels good for you. Hug the knee in, take the other hand just behind your bum onto the fingertips. Fill up the lungs, nice deep inhale. And then as you exhale, rotate. Again, trying to breathe in through the nose on that inhale. Expanding the ribs, and then exhale, you can breathe out of the nose or the mouth. From there, you can release, shake the hips out if you need to. Thanks for joining me for this flow. I really hope it's helped you. Please pop me a comment below and let me know, one, if it helped, and also if you have any requests going forward. I'll be filming mobility flows, yoga flows, as well as skills such as handstands. Finally, subscribe to this channel and like this video, and just share with anyone else that you know it might help. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you for the next one.